Imagine walking into a high school classroom tomorrow and realizing that every single student is working on a device that doesn't have a start button. No blue screens of frustration, no spinning circles of update despair, and absolutely zero Windows icons in sight. This isn't just a trend in one or two districts. This is a massive, coordinated tidal wave that is currently sweeping across the United States, from the biggest urban districts in New York and Chicago to tiny rural schools in the Midwest. American education is walking away from Microsoft at a speed that has left the executives in Redmond in a total state of panic. We are talking about a $10 billion education deal that has effectively collapsed overnight as schools officially drop Windows in favor of Google's ChromeOS. The king of the desktop is being evicted from the place where it matters most, the classroom, and the implications for the future of tech are absolutely staggering. Why is this happening right now? Why is the company that built the modern world suddenly losing its grip on the next generation? To understand this, we have to look at the sheer chaos that managing Windows in a school environment has become. For decades, Microsoft held a near monopoly on education. If you wanted to learn skills for the workforce, you had to learn Windows. You had to learn Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. But the world has shifted. The modern student lives in the browser. They don't care about the file system. They don't care about registry keys. And they certainly don't have the patience for a 45-minute BIOS update during second period chemistry. School IT administrators are currently at their breaking point. Managing a fleet of 5,000 Windows laptops is a full-time nightmare of security patches, driver conflicts, and hardware requirements that seem to change every 6 months. Then came ChromeOS. It was fast, it was cheap, and most importantly, it was impossible for a teenager to break. The financial hit to Microsoft here is hard to even wrap your head around. When we talk about a $10 billion deal being lost, we aren't just talking about the price of the laptops. We are talking about the entire ecosystem. Microsoft's business model relies on the concept of the life cycle. If you get a student used to Windows at age 7, they will want Windows in college, and they will demand Windows in the workforce. But Google has effectively hijacked that life cycle by providing a seamless, cloud-based experience that starts in kindergarten. Google is ensuring that the workforce of 2035 won't even know how to use a standard Windows desktop. They will look at a local C drive and ask where the Google Drive button is. This is a long-term strategic loss that has Microsoft's top brass losing sleep because you can't just buy back a generation of users once they've moved on. Let's talk about the hardware reality because this is where the rubber really meets the road for school budgets. A school district has a very difficult job. They have to provide technology to thousands of students with a budget that is usually stretched thin. A decent Windows laptop that won't lag when opening 3 tabs costs at least $400. On top of that, you have the hidden costs. You need expensive management software, antivirus subscriptions, and a massive team of IT professionals just to keep the machines from crashing. Now look at the Chromebook. You can get a ruggedized, classroom-ready Chromebook for $200. It boots in 6 seconds. It has a battery that actually lasts the whole school day. And from a management perspective, one single IT person can manage 10,000 Chromebooks from a single web dashboard. The math simply doesn't add up for Microsoft anymore. Schools are looking at their spreadsheets and realizing they can give 2 students Chromebooks for the price of 1 Windows machine. The panic in Redmond isn't just about the money today. It is about the recall disaster and the general bloat of Windows 11. Recently, Microsoft has been trying to push AI features into every corner of the OS. While this might sound cool in a boardroom, it is a privacy nightmare for schools. Educational institutions are bound by incredibly strict student privacy laws. When Microsoft announces features that take screenshots of everything you do or require constant telemetry pings to the cloud, school lawyers start getting very nervous. ChromeOS by design is a much more locked-down environment. It doesn't have 30 years of legacy code and backdoors. It is a hardened browser window. For a school superintendent, that means fewer headaches, fewer chances of a data breach, and much more control over what the students are actually seeing. The response from Microsoft has been frantic. They tried to launch Windows 10s, which was supposed to be a Chrome competitor, but it failed because it was still Windows under the hood. It still had the same slow updates and the same cluttered interface. Then they tried Windows 11 SE, another attempt to bridge the gap, but the reputation was already ruined. IT directors across the country are sharing their stories on forums and at conferences. They talk about Chromebook Friday, the day they finally boxed up the old Windows laptops and handed out the sleek, light Google devices. They describe a sense of peace returning to their departments. No more "my computer is doing an update" excuses. No more malware infections from students trying to download unofficial games. The Penguin-powered kernel of ChromeOS has won the war of stability. But let's dive deeper into what this means for the future of the American workforce. If you are an employer in the year 2030, and you hire a 22-year-old college graduate, that person has spent 13 years in the Google ecosystem. They are masters of collaborative editing in Google Docs. They organize their lives in Google Calendar. They are comfortable with a web-first reality. If you sit them down in front of a traditional Windows workstation with a local file server and Outlook, they are going to feel like they've stepped into a museum. Microsoft has realized that their crown jewel, the Office suite, is being devalued by the generation that sees it as that old software my dad uses. Google Workspace has become the standard for the new age, and because it runs perfectly on ChromeOS, there is no reason to ever look back. The scale of this shift is documented in recent procurement reports. We are seeing major statewide contracts that used to be guaranteed for Microsoft being won by Google partners. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of devices per contract. Microsoft's education sales team is reportedly under immense pressure to stop the bleeding, but they are fighting an uphill battle against the sheer simplicity of the cloud. The infrastructure of our schools has changed. Most classrooms no longer have a local server in the closet. They have a high-speed fiber connection to the internet. In that world, the operating system doesn't need to be a massive, complex beast. It just needs to be a gateway to the web. Google understood this 10 years ago, and Microsoft is still trying to figure out how to make a start menu that people actually like. Let's talk about the great e-waste crisis that Microsoft accidentally created. With the announcement of Windows 11, Microsoft set very high hardware requirements. Suddenly, millions of perfectly good school laptops were deemed obsolete because they didn't have the right security chip. For a company, that is an annoyance. For a school district, that is an absolute catastrophe. Imagine telling a school board that the $5 million they spent 4 years ago is now useless because the software company decided to change the rules. Google, meanwhile, was launching the Chromebook Plus initiative and extending the support life of older devices to 10 years. Schools saw this and realized Google was a more stable partner for long-term planning. Microsoft effectively pushed schools out of their own door by making Windows too demanding for existing hardware. Wait until you hear about the hidden hero of this story, which is the IT technician. I've talked to dozens of people who work in school tech support. Their lives have been transformed by this switch. One tech in a large Georgia district told me that before they went all in on ChromeOS, he was running from classroom to classroom all day long. He was fixing blue screens, resetting forgotten passwords, and trying to figure out why the printer stopped working after an update. Now, he spends most of his day looking at a dashboard. If a student breaks a laptop, they just hand it in, get a new one, log in, and all their files are right there. No data loss, no downtime. This zero-touch deployment is the holy grail of IT, and Microsoft simply cannot achieve it with the baggage of Windows. Microsoft's panic is showing up in their advertising too. Have you noticed the recent push for AI PCs? They are trying to convince the world that you need a specialized, expensive chip just to do basic tasks. But schools are looking at that and saying, why? Why do we need a $1,000 AI PC when a $200 Chromebook can access the same AI tools via the cloud? The logic of the local operating system is falling apart. If the heavy lifting is being done by servers in a data center, why do we need a heavy OS on our desks? Microsoft is trying to defend a fortress that doesn't have any walls anymore. The browser has become the destination, and once you realize that, the operating system becomes nothing more than a driver for the screen and the keyboard. We also have to consider the collaborative culture that ChromeOS fosters. If you haven't been in a school lately, you might not realize how differently kids work today. They don't save a file and email it to a friend. They open a shared doc, and 5 kids work on it at once in real time. While Microsoft does have Office 365, the experience has always felt like a clunky add-on to a desktop app. Google's version was built for collaboration from day one. It is native. It is fluid. This way of working has become second nature to students. It has created a gap between the old way of individual local files and the new way of collective cloud work. Microsoft is on the wrong side of that gap, and as the $10 billion education deals continue to vanish, that gap is turning into a canyon. It is fascinating to watch the executives scramble in Redmond. There are reports of emergency meetings and massive shifts in the Windows roadmap. They are trying to strip back the OS to make a Windows Lite that can actually compete. But they've tried this before with Windows RT, with Windows 10s, and they always fail because they can't let go of their past. They can't let go of the legacy apps that make Windows Windows. Google doesn't have that problem. They started with a clean slate. They built an OS for the internet age, and it turns out that is exactly what schools needed. The collapse of these huge contracts is a clear signal from the market. We don't want your complexity anymore. We want something that just works. But what about the teachers? This is another area where Microsoft lost the battle. Google Classroom has become the OS for teachers. It's where they post assignments, grade papers, and communicate with parents. It is so deeply integrated with ChromeOS that using a Windows machine feels like using a tool from another era. Teachers are already overworked. They don't want to spend 20 minutes of their lesson time being the IT guy for their students. They want a device that turns on instantly and stays on. The reliability of ChromeOS has won over the educators, and once you have the teachers on your side, the battle is over. They are the ones who tell the principals and the superintendents what they need, and right now they are shouting for Google. This $10 billion hit is more than just a line item on a balance sheet. It is a symbol of the shifting power dynamics in tech. For 30 years, Microsoft was the sun that everything else revolved around. Today, the internet is the sun, and the devices we use are just planets orbiting it. Microsoft is trying to convince us that their planet is the best one to live on. But Google has already built a space station that lets people go wherever they want. As more and more students grow up on that space station, the idea of living on a single heavy planet like Windows seems less and less appealing. The future of American tech isn't being decided in Silicon Valley boardrooms. It's being decided in kindergarten classrooms in Ohio and Texas. The ripple effects are going to be massive. Think about the developers. If you are a young software engineer building the next great educational tool, what platform do you target first? You target the browser. You target the platform that is in the hands of 80% of students. This creates a death spiral for Windows in education. Fewer educational apps are built for Windows, so fewer schools buy Windows, so even fewer apps are built. It's the same thing that happened to the Windows Phone, just on a much larger and more consequential scale. Microsoft is watching their moat disappear in real time, and they don't have enough sand to fill it back in. Let's look at the security gap, because this is a huge part of the American school story. We are seeing a massive rise in cyber attacks targeting public institutions. School districts are prime targets for ransomware because they have valuable data and often have old, unpatched systems. Windows is, unfortunately, the primary target for these attacks. Every week there's a story of a district having to shut down because their Windows servers and laptops were locked by hackers. ChromeOS has a read-only operating system. Even if a student manages to download something malicious, it can't write itself to the system files. It's essentially a self-healing device. Schools are realizing that moving to ChromeOS isn't just a budget move. It's a vital security move to protect student records. Microsoft's recall feature was perhaps the final straw for many IT directors. The idea of a feature that records everything on a student's screen and stores it in a searchable database is a legal nightmare. Even if Microsoft says it's secure, the liability is too high. Imagine a data breach where a hacker gets access to months of screenshots from a classroom. The lawsuits would be endless. By contrast, Google has been very careful to build in education-first privacy settings that are easy for districts to audit. The trust gap has widened, and in the world of education, trust is everything. Microsoft is seen as a data-hungry corporation trying to sell AI, while Google is seen as the utility that provides the pipes and the water for the classroom. The panic in Redmond is also reflected in how they are treating their hardware partners. Companies like Dell, HP, and Lenovo, who used to be Windows only, are now selling more Chromebooks to schools than anything else. Microsoft is trying to pressure these partners to push Windows, but the partners have to follow the money. And the money is flowing toward the cloud. We are seeing a revolution in laptop design too. Chromebooks are getting better screens, better keyboards, and better build quality, all while staying at a price point that Microsoft can't touch without losing money on every sale. It's a race to the bottom that Microsoft isn't equipped to win. So, where does this leave the window to the world? If the classroom belongs to Google and the creative world belongs to Apple, what is left for Microsoft? They still have the high-end corporate office and the gaming world, but even there, the walls are closing in. Gaming is moving to the cloud with things like GeForce Now and Google's own tech legacy. Corporate offices are moving to web-based tools. The desktop as we know it is becoming a niche product for power users. For the average person, and especially for the student, the operating system is becoming irrelevant. Microsoft's panic is the panic of a company that realized their main product is becoming a commodity that nobody wants to pay for. The loss of this $10 billion deal is a wake-up call for the entire tech industry. It shows that even the biggest giants can be toppled if they lose sight of what their users actually need. Schools didn't ask for AI assistance. They didn't ask for transparent windows or a centered taskbar. They asked for reliability, low costs, and easy management. Google gave them that. Microsoft gave them more buttons, more ads, and more requirements. As we move into 2025 and 2026, the great Windows exit is only going to accelerate. The classrooms of America have spoken, and they've chosen the cloud. Next time you see a Windows is ready for an update screen on your computer, just imagine a teacher in front of 30 kids, all seeing that same screen at the same time. That's the moment Microsoft lost the $10 billion deal. It wasn't one event. It was millions of small moments of friction that finally made the weight of Windows too heavy to carry. The Penguin Revolution is here, and it's carrying a Chrome logo. The tech landscape for the next 50 years is being rewritten right now, and for the first time in history, Microsoft isn't the one holding the pen. But wait, there is even more to this story. Think about the home effect. When these students go home, they don't want to use their parents' old Windows PC. They want a device that feels like the one they use at school. This is creating a secondary market boom for Chromebooks in the consumer space. Parents are seeing how easy these devices are for their kids, and they are buying them for themselves. The halo effect that Apple used with the iPhone to sell Macs is being used by Google with Chromebooks to sell an entire lifestyle. Microsoft is being squeezed from the school to the home, leaving them with nothing but the aging corporate cubicle. Redmond's reaction has been to double down on their own cloud services, but it feels like they are playing catch-up. They are trying to turn Windows into a cloud OS, but the very nature of Windows makes that difficult. It's like trying to turn a cruise ship into a speedboat. You can add more engines, but it's still a massive, heavy ship. Google's ChromeOS was built as a speedboat from the start. As the world moves faster and faster toward a web-only future, that weight becomes a terminal disadvantage. The $10 billion loss is just the beginning of the erosion. We are witnessing the slow-motion collapse of a digital empire. I've talked to students who have never known a world without G Suite. To them, saving a file is a weird concept because everything is always saved automatically. They don't understand why you would ever need to click a save button. This shift in the very fundamental way we interact with data is the real Microsoft killer. If your OS is built around the idea of local files and folders, you are speaking a language that the next generation doesn't understand. Google is speaking their language, and they are rewarding Google with their loyalty. Microsoft's panic is justified. This isn't a problem they can solve with a marketing campaign or a new version of Windows. It's a fundamental shift in the culture of computing. The American School Project was Microsoft's way of ensuring dominance for another 30 years. Now that it has failed, they are staring at a future where they are just another service provider, not the platform that the world runs on. The $10 billion deal might be dead, but the consequences of its demise are very much alive and will be felt for decades to come. Imagine the boardroom in Redmond right now. There are likely maps of the US with school districts colored in red for Microsoft and blue for Google. Every month, more of those red spots are turning blue. They are trying everything. Free tablets, deep discounts on laptops, even offering Office for free for a decade. But the schools are saying no. They are saying no because it's not about the money anymore. It's about the time. It's about the sanity of the IT staff. It's about a device that works every single time it's opened. Microsoft can't give them that because Windows is too complex to ever be that simple. This tech war is a fascinating documentary of the power of simplicity. In our world of more, the company that offered less actually won. Google offered less bloat, less hardware requirements, and less management. And in the education sector, less is worth $10 billion. Microsoft is currently learning this lesson the hard way. They were so focused on adding features that they forgot to make the foundation solid. Now the foundation is cracking, and the schools are moving their students to a different building entirely. The final irony is that Microsoft actually helped build the web that is now replacing them. They fought for internet dominance in the 90s, and now the internet has grown so powerful that it has made their primary product, the desktop OS, obsolete for the average user. They won the battle for the browser back then, but they lost the war for the platform. Chrome is more than just a browser now. It is the center of the student rail digital life. As Windows fades into the background, we have to ask ourselves, what is next? If Google owns the school, what will the office look like in 10 years? Most likely, it will look like a larger version of the classroom, with no start buttons in sight. The panic continues, and as the contracts continue to expire and be renewed with Chrome logos, the shift becomes permanent. There is no going back once a district has retrained its staff and students on a new ecosystem. The education deal wasn't just a sale, it was a pact. Microsoft broke that pact by making Windows too difficult and too expensive to maintain. Google was there to pick up the pieces, and they are currently building a future that has no room for the old ways of Redmond. The tech world has changed, and for the first time in a long time, Microsoft is the one left behind in the hallway. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into the crumbling of an empire. The tech world moves fast, and often the biggest changes happen in the places we least expect, like the local high school computer lab. The story of Microsoft's panic and the $10 billion loss is a reminder that in technology, nobody is too big to fail if they stop serving the needs of the people. Stay curious, keep an eye on the systems and tools you use every day, and remember that the future is being built right now by a generation that doesn't know what a C drive is. The penguin is in the classroom, and the world will never be the same.